recording. Okay, welcome everybody. It's great to see so many faces on our call this afternoon. My name is Andrew Michalov, and for those of you who do not know me, I am the head of Boomi Community and User Groups under the Boomiverse team. So it's a pleasure to be here with you, and kicking off our first edition of the APJ Higher Education User Group. Purpose of the call today is really to get you all connected to each other, connected to our Boomi team and some of our partners and around the world. We have special guest joining us today from Ithaca, New York at Cornell University, John Parker. John, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. It's a great learning opportunity to hear from each other and just to have an informal conversation. We'll take some time for that, get a chance to know each other a little bit better. And again, the point is really for you all to connect and learn best practices and tips and tricks from each other and understand how we're all using Boomi within our own businesses. So with that, let's get going. Again, thank you. Hope everybody is doing well. We're certainly in some unique times these days, and understand that there's plenty of opportunity to join sessions, and Zoom is went from being our friend to being our enemy. In that we're invited to so many Zoom calls, each and every day. So really appreciate you guys taking your time to join us this afternoon, and we hope to bring you a fun experience, interactive experience, but also an experience where you get a chance to learn a lot and have some key takeaways coming out of this session. So thank you again for that. Before we do get into too much, just want to go through a couple of quick housekeeping items. Number one, session is being recorded. I think I unpaused it, so it should be recording now. Yes, it is. So the purpose of us recording it is so we can have this as an asset. We can post it on the community and give people an opportunity to refer back to the session if there's something that was important that was said, or something perhaps that John's going to talk about when he gives us his talk that you may want to refer back to. So we have that as a permanent asset on community. And for those who are not able to join us this afternoon, people that registered or just didn't have a chance to register and something else came up, we want to give those folks an opportunity to get connected and to hear and learn about what's what everybody's doing, and kind of get involved in that way, and perhaps they can join the next time. So the session will be recorded. If you're not completely comfortable with that, I would suggest just keep your mic muted. If you want to engage, you can use the chat feature in Zoom. You can post your questions in there. My team will be on the lookout for those questions, but and also just keep your video turned off. So that's another way, so that again that the recording is to your satisfaction from that perspective. So mics are muted by default when you sign in, but you should have the ability to unmute yourselves. Try to keep that under control. Obviously, you don't want everybody talking over everybody else. So if you do have a comment or a question, again, please engage. We're trying to make these sessions interactive. We don't want to be lecturing to you all. This is not a webinar. This is really an interactive session and a chance to share. So please take advantage of the opportunity, do that, and get engaged, and turn your cameras on too. I think to make everyone feel a little bit closer, a little bit more connected, a little bit more like an in-person event. It's great to see about 15 people or so who do have their videos turned on. Would love to see the rest of your smiling faces. So if you do feel comfortable with that, please turn your video on, and we'll get a chance to see each other. Makes making those connections a little bit easier. You can also raise your hand. There's a feature under the participants panel for you all. So if you click in the toolbar, you click on participants, you'll see a little blue hand. If you have questions and you don't, you want us to kind of wait until there's a pause in the action, just raise your hand. My team will unmute you. But like I said, you should be able to unmute yourselves, or just post in the chat. That's another way to get your voice heard. There's going to be 2 polls during the session. The first poll I'm going to kick off in just a minute here. It's just an opening poll. It's kind of an icebreaker just to get people starting to engage and connect, and gives us a little bit of feedback for this event. The second poll is in my opinion, is a little bit more important. Just it really offers my team an opportunity to hear from you directly, get your feedback, and enables us to continue to provide you with an awesome opportunity here and a great experience, most of all. So please stick around for both of those. Take them when you see them pop up. And again, it provides us with some good feedback and learnings. So, and the last but not least, have fun. It's at some point we'll be able to return to live sessions. We had some fantastic events last year throughout Australia. The live events were great, really interactive. Got people involved, asking questions and connecting. But we hope to return to that sometime soon. So in the meantime, let's have fun with this. I see Victor's got a really cool background. I think in the U.S., John, I'm gonna have people bring their pets to the New York event, because I've seen people popping in. Their cats are jumping in, their dogs. So just make this a fun time, but also an opportunity to learn and connect. So with that, let's get the first poll going. Let's see, where are my polls? Here they are. In just a second, you should see that popping up on your screens. Now, you guys see it? Everybody sees that? Yep. Thumbs up. John, I think you can see it. You probably can't take it since you're a co-host. But so let's give folks a minute to take that. I'll share it. It says there are 30 people who have the ability to take it. So that means I have a couple of co-hosts that can't take it. But as soon as we're done, I'll get the results up on the screen. We can take a quick peek at those. It should be fun to watch that. But in the meantime, I'll say it again. For those of you who were just joining us a little bit late, love to have your mics turned on, your cameras turned on, so it feels like an in-person event. Let's take the time and the opportunity to engage and connect and meet and greet each other, learn from each other, and hopefully when we get back to those live events that we've made some key contacts that can really help us on our Boomi journey. All right, some results are coming through. Give it another couple of seconds here.
You should have banned the Boomi people from doing the questionnaire as well. Would we recommend Boomi? I'm like, 10.
Of course.
Of course, absolutely.
So you can't see it, Steve? You can't see the you can see the poll.
I was. So I'm probably doing the swing vote to extremely likely.
Nice. Love it. It's interesting though. It's at our live events, it's great to be in person with each other, but at the same time, there's always some challenges, logistical challenges, just getting to the venue. This virtual environment. This is, I think, our 6th or 7th virtual event. Gives us a chance for people to connect who normally would not be able to connect. So super cool. So I'm going to end the polling there, and I'll share the results on the screen, and we can take a quick peek at that. All right. Everybody can see the results? Yep, cool. So I love this first one. It's most highest percentage first timers. We've seen that across the board at all the events that we've done. That most people, this is their first opportunity to join us. So welcome back, the returning visitors, and welcome the first timers. So decent spread here and across the country. No surprises here. Cool. So I added this question in. I think at our last one. You're surprised?
I'm surprised there are more people from Queensland than Victoria.
Well, I was looking at there's 2 states, right? There's the highest percentage.
Yeah.
That's the not big surprise for me.
I'm happy surprised because we have obviously the maximum participants from Victoria and New South Wales for all of these events. It's very good and very refreshing to see this welcome change.
Yep.
That we have representations from other states as well, swelling up. So awesome. Very, very happy. I know Steve is very happy as well.
Yeah, University of Sunshine Coast team, QUT, and so forth. It's awesome to have them on.
Yeah.
So we do it's pretty active on the community, which is great to see that as well. Get some good old feedback as well on the recommending the community. So we'll have to maybe get some feedback from those folks who were a little bit lower down on that poll on the scale here. I'd love to hear from you. how we can improve that experience for you. And then this is always a fun one. So it's always one person chooses their spouse as their enemy. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that, but thank you for taking that poll. Really appreciate everyone's input. All right, so the agenda, again, my name is Andrew, for those of you just joining. And along with us today, we have John Parker. John, want to say hi to everybody?
Hi to everybody.
All right, so John's joining us from Cornell. Both John and I are on the same time zone. So about 1 a.m. on our time, not too bad. But we're super happy to be here with you guys today. So we'll hear from John in a little bit. And then Nadir, Arun, I think you guys are going to just kind of kick things off, just trying to get the interactive conversation happening between the attendees. And then depending on time, we'll see how much time we have. You know, I had planned to do a quick walkthrough of the Boomiverse community and some of the new features that are coming up. And then we'll do that last poll, get some live feedback, and then wrap things up from there. So how are we doing on time? So we still have a couple of minutes. I think we'll kick things off just by doing the intro in the beginning. So something we do at all the live events, we've been doing in all these virtual events as well, and these start to spark some really good conversation, get people connected, get them engaged. It's called the virtual brain toss. And in the US, in the live events we've had in Australia as well, actually I have a foam brain that I'll toss around the room. Whoever catches it has to go, about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just really quick story of, you know, your Boomi journey. What has it meant to you, and how has it been? And just kind of walk through these questions. And then that person will take the brain and pass it to somebody else, and it's then their chance to go. So again, this is an icebreaker, gets a chance for people to connect. John, you've been through several of these yourself at the live events in the US. So we're looking for volunteers for this. You know, if you have the ability to unmute yourself, please do that. It's always hard getting that first person to go, but if you can't unmute yourself, you can always post something in the chat or just use that hand raising feature under the participants panel in the toolbar. So any volunteers, anybody want to kick it off? Non-Boomi folks, to first starters.
I'll go first, Andrew, because I'm always vocal.
Go for it.
I have done this before at a previous event where I met you at the Boomi in Brisbane, probably 18 months ago. So my name's
Brisbane was the famous one, I think, with the exploding ball, right?
Yes.
So it's now
yeah.
a non-exploding foam brain that I have since that event. But Dominic, welcome. Thank you so much.
Good to see you, Andrew. Yeah, Dominic Peterson. I'm a senior integration specialist at QUT. We've been a Boomi customer now for just coming up on 12 months since we actually installed the product, and we're using it to completely, I suppose, replace a whole collection of legacy integration developed in a variety of technologies over 20 plus years. The Boomi user community, look, I think where we can, we've used the Boomi community to provide us with insight into how other people have solved the problems we're trying to solve, rather than reinventing those wheels. Where's our Boomi journey taking us next? I think we are going to just continue to build all new integration on Boomi and try and migrate all of that 20 years of legacy onto the Boomi platform. And the interesting fact about myself, and Andrew's heard this one before, but for the last 15 odd years, I've been building a car from scratch in my garage at home.
That's right. I remember that story.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dominic. Appreciate it. Appreciate the
worries,
going first there.
No worries.
So with that, who's gonna follow? Who's gonna follow suit? And who's got a cool fact as cool as Dominic's? I'm a car guy, so I love that.
I guess I'll go. I'm Jared, so I work for CNET. We're a Catholic Education Network. We work with 16 member dioceses across Australia. We purchased Boomi originally to reinvent our identity and access management services, which we have done. Where are we looking to go? We're looking to now deliver enterprise platform capabilities and delivering data out into our customers via, I guess, long-standing APIs. An interesting fact about myself, I don't really have one, other than I do like cars.
Cool. Awesome.
Hey, Jared, it's Nadir here. Just before we get off, Jared, just so that people get an understanding of the tasks that you guys had with the identity management, can you just tell us like how many staff, like teachers, and how many students that solution goes out to?
So I think for a total number of users, it's up over 400,000 unique users.
Yeah, so
it's ranging from a multitude of AD, legacy LDAP integrations, SQL, other event-driven systems, and basically presenting an API, scheme-based, delivering that into a data store, and then providing event-driven identity updates into subsequent systems.
Thank you, Jared.
No worries.
Cool. Appreciate that, Jared. Thank you. Anybody else who's interested in sharing their story briefly? Nadir and Arun, I think you guys can probably pull a few folks together.
I won't let Steve Butler off the hook. I know he's smiling, but unless if there's no one else, then I'd definitely like to ask Steve to say a few words.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, Steve Butler. I'm with Flinders University in Adelaide, South Australia. Why did you purchase Boomi? Well, I didn't buy it, but prior to having Boomi, we didn't have an integration platform at all. We were generally using scripts to move data around. So it was a way of getting some visibility over all that sort of stuff happening. And as we've probably had it for 3 years now, about 2 years ago, we started moving a lot of our core enterprise systems into the cloud. So Boomi has really, really helped us enable that. Just going down the questions, I use the community heaps to solve issues. You know, Boomi's sort of sold to you as it's so easy, just put all these shapes on the screen and away it goes. But there's so many what we call Boomi-isms, or the things underneath that trip you up all the time. So it's been really helpful there. Where to next? We'd like to get to the point where we start to build more reusable services and start to reuse components. We haven't sort of done a lot of that at the moment. And we haven't deployed the API gateway yet, so I think that's another opportunity for us to sort of go down that path. More facts, I don't know, there's a lot interesting about me. I'm more of a motorcycle guy than a car guy. I've got a Honda Z50 in pieces in the garage at the moment that I'm restoring, so yeah, that's my passion at the moment.
Awesome, cool. Steve, thank you very much. Appreciate the share. Sam Herring, I saw you had raised your hand. You should be able to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Sam Herring. I'm a business systems analyst and the implementer of Boomi for the University of the Sunshine Coast. So I guess that kind of answers the first few questions. We're like just purchased, really excited, looking to figure out how we can make the most of the platform. And for us, the community has been really, really beneficial. Even pre-sales is just kind of understanding, well, what are the challenges people are seeing with the platform, and how can we mitigate that? Our long-term plan is obviously to implement Boomi as our full end-to-end integration platform. We've had a little bit of a mix between some scripts that we've implemented, as well as our own home-baked attempts at integration platforms to little avail. So yeah, looking for some consolidation and some high-level visibility. But more importantly, we're on a very similar journey to cloud, so hoping Boomi can get us there. Interesting facts. Oh, yeah, that's a hard call. You may see I have a really, really large 55 odd kilo Rottweiler roam around here. If he pops into the frame, if you shout loud enough, he'll hear you and probably get on the desk. So bit of a laugh for everyone.
I like your sweatshirt.
Thank you. It seems a little fitting with SpaceX up in the well, past the atmosphere now. Good on him.
Did you watch it?
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Absolutely
amazing,
incredible.
Right? Yeah.
Very cool.
Able to bring the jet back to land. Perfect landing.
Yeah, I read something today that said that that propulsion system is the size of the Statue of Liberty. To be able to kind of land it on a floating platform in the ocean, that's some pretty
pretty-
impressive engineering.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Mm,
Cool.
Very.
Well, Sam,
Cool.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else want to go? I think we probably have time for one more if anybody else wants to volunteer. There'll be more opportunities to share your story, and Nadir and Arun will kind of lead that in a bit. So if you want to take a pause on that, otherwise we can move on. Going once, anybody else going twice? Okay. So John, good sir, are you ready? I think you're up next.
Sure, sure.
I'm gonna stop the share.
Let me do my 30-second. Hey, Chris, how are you? There's my friend Chris Wood. I've been doing integration since 2003 at Cornell, and we started out with software AG, web methods, and moved to Oracle's Fusion middleware in 2011, which was a unmitigated disaster. We switched to Boomi in 2014, January, and we've never looked back. It's been tremendous success for us. We started out with atoms and molecules, and we are now doing private atom cloud so that we can allow each of the different units on campus to train up their own developers and become citizen integrators with minimal support from our central IT. An interesting fact about that is our lab of ornithology, which likes to tell everybody they've got the largest collection of bird sounds in the world, is looking to implement Boomi and potentially Master Data Hub for their members, for their birders, as it were. So what I wanted to talk about today is it's a little bit bleeding edge. We've been trying to get Master Data Hub as a formal package at Cornell since 2014. And we finally got a chance just a week ago, and that's how recent it is, to prove the value of this product to the university. And it was COVID-19 that actually gave us that opportunity. We have multiple campuses. Ithaca is our main campus, but we have a campus in the middle of the Hudson River in New York City, New York Tech, and they went virtual probably 2 weeks before the main campus in Ithaca went virtual. And right around the time that the main campus went virtual, a note was sent out to all the students saying classes were canceled. And so we had thousands of students in New York City saying, "What do you mean classes are canceled? You know, how does that affect us? We're still supposed to be doing classes." And it went all the way quickly to the president of the university, who became very annoyed at the fact that we were not able to more tailor the recipients of these notifications. And university relations, the provost, everybody got involved, and we saw an opportunity to show them just how much Boomi and Master Data Hub could solve this issue for them. And we just finished a proposal last week. We have no expectation that the president is going to say no. We're solving a need that the university has, and I just wanted to quickly go through what it was that we did to solve this issue that the university had with communication. So let's see if I can figure out how to use. So we called this this proof of concept, this implementation, CU People. And what CU People does is that it ties our PeopleSoft, which is our student data of record, and Workday, which is our HR student of record, through Master Data Hub, down to Salesforce, and then making it so that Pardot, the native Salesforce email application, can slice and dice who all gets each of the different emails. And so right now, as I said, our data sources are PeopleSoft Student, Workday HR. The design was to come through Integrate to Master Data Hub, back through Integrate to Salesforce, and presenting the information to Pardot where they can tailor who gets the messages. What we're trying to do to prove to the university how serious we are about this is that the PeopleSoft student team has written SQL that will be considered a production asset. It will create a master data set that Boomi will reach out once a day and via REST API pull student information back and send that through Boomi Integrate to Master Data Hub to get a golden record.
John, 1 sec. Can I jump in for just 1 quick second? I don't mean to interrupt. I think your presentation view and your display screen that you're showing needs to be flip-flopped. You're showing the presenter view. I think you need to show maybe share the other screen.
I don't. All right. So how do you do that?
So you have two screens?
Oh, yeah, I do have two screens, as a matter of fact.
So I think if you stop sharing and then reshare, just pick the other screen that the other view is on.
Thank you, sir. Sorry
to stop your momentum there.
That's all right. My momentum is tentative at best, anyways. All right. Is that better?
Yep. There we go.
I'll be looking at the wrong screen now, so hope everybody doesn't mind. Anyway, the premise was that we were going to treat this SQL that coming out of PeopleSoft as a production asset that would be invoked by Boomi via REST call to pull all the student information and shove it into Master Data Hub, into a golden record, and we're calling this the attribute record. Well, it's content, it's the attributes. We're actually calling it the people record. Workday is very similar. A Workday Studio report was written, and it too will be maintained as a production asset. That too we will execute once a day via REST API, and we will pull in the staff and student employee information from Ithaca, New York, etc. Shove it into Master Data Hub and add it to the attributes record. So an example of this might be Boomi Integrate going into Master Data Hub. The golden record would have the name and identifier of the employees, and then what they do for the university, what roles they have. Are they staff, faculty, student? Are they student employees, undergraduate, graduate, et cetera, With this granularity, then Pardot can say, I want to send an email to all the staff at our New York Tech campus, or I want to send an email to all the undergraduate students at our main campus, et cetera. Of course, and then we would take Master Data Hub and feed the results back to Salesforce for Pardot to pick up. This is probably unintelligible, but so we created a CU people model with two repeating groups, attributes and email addresses. And the attributes basically are keyed off of the location. And for each location, we've got segmentations of which of these different groups these people belong to, or multiple groups they belong to. If I can get this to switch. So, for example, the Workday report is going to give us for every employee in every position where their location is, whether they're full-time, part-time, student employee, hourly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they will give the HR view of the workforce at Cornell. The PeopleSoft, and you know, we can't ever do stuff the same way. So Workday is going to be zeros and ones, and PeopleSoft is going to be trues and falses. But PeopleSoft will do the exact same thing, except it will go by. Let me state up front that in our system, everyone has an employee ID, whether they're an employee or not. Students have one, faculty have one, staff have one. It's the unique identifier at Cornell. So the PeopleSoft data record is going to be different. It's going to be a student perspective, whether FERPA flag is on, whether a student, undergraduate, graduate, law school, Johnson School of Management, veterinary school, extended education, continuing education, whether after a professional program, a research program, or an employee degree program. And so we've got two different views of the people with employee IDs at Cornell. Now, one thing I'm sure if anybody else is using Workday, or whether you're using Workday or not, if you're a university, you know that employees can have multiple positions. And at Cornell, here's an example of one person with 6 different jobs. And so we get 6 different records out of Workday because that's how they track it, employee and position. We also can get one person who are in 2 different locations. And I chose not to show you the one that shows one person in Ithaca full-time and one person in New York Tech campus full-time, because no one's been able to explain how somebody's full-time in both campuses. But in this case, we've got one of the New York Tech campus person is full-time and the Ithaca campus person is part-time. And that can happen and does happen a lot. There's also the different flags as to whether they're academic, whether they're faculty, etc. In this case, we've got 2 students, employees, so they show up both in Workday and in PeopleSoft. And I'll show you on the next panel where the PeopleSoft record for these same employee IDs and what their different segments are. So here they are. So same employee IDs. They're both students. One of them's undergraduate, and one of them's veterinary medicine, and one of them's seeking a professional degree, and one of them's seeking an employee degree program, or part of an employee degree program. So I think what I'm trying to show here is that both in this case and in this case, we've got multiple records coming in that have to somehow be flattened so that they reflect, you know, for a location and an employee ID, what the different segmentation groups that emails might be targeted at. In this case, we've got one student employed in 2 different places. So we've got this student is employed in New York City full-time, and is or student employee and his staff, and the same person is a student in the Johnson School of Management at Ithaca. So once again, New York, Ithaca, 2 different records, 2 different sets of attributes, 2 different ways in which university relations might want to reach out, especially with emergency management notification and things like that. So on Master Data Hub, this record for this person has 2 sets of attributes. And this is where I was talking about before with the repeating groups, where you can have 1 to n of these sets of attributes for the same employee. And the keys again are, the keys are the location, New York Tech versus other for this particular employee. And then we got the data in Master Data Hub. Now we turn around, as the original drawing showed, and pass that data back to Salesforce, in which case they can, they have attribute groups, 2 of which that Pardot will use to pull in this. I want to send an email to somebody in location other than New York and Ithaca who's in an employee degree program, or I want to send and is a student, professional student in the Johnson School, or I want to send one to someone at Cornell Tech or New York City who's full-time employee, as full-time staff, and that's the extent of their attributes. And so the whole purpose, the whole thrust of this was to solve an issue with notifications going to the wrong audiences, and we leveraged the power of Boomi Integrate's ability to talk to PeopleSoft, Workday, Master Data Hub, and Salesforce, and Master Data Hub's ability to coalesce this data so that we could then, using the Salesforce channels, feed the data back out and update Salesforce accordingly. And Pardot can now build email groups based on these attributes and target their email explicitly to the audiences that care. So we could have talked about a number of different projects, but this was the newest and bleeding edge, and the one I've been working nonstop on for the last 2 weeks. So I thought it would be the one I could talk to most intelligently. So.
I think pretty relevant considering what's going on right now, right, John?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And communication and emergency management stuff is critical.
It's awesome, John.
I
guess
apologize if
Andrew,
I talked too long.
yeah. So John, I'm pretty sure, like, there's going to be a lot of questions by a lot of folks, but I'll start with a couple of questions. So how many people were involved in building the solution in the university? Do you have an idea that you can share?
Sure, and our excluding some help from some Boomi folks, some really talented help. There were 3 of us. I did all the Master Data Hub and the Boomi Integrate. We had one person, actually I guess there's 4. one person did the PeopleSoft, one person did the Workday, and one person did the Salesforce. But I did the stuff in the middle.
So
Yeah,
what,
that's incredible.
oh, no, go ahead, Arun.
No, I was just saying, like, yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, I was asking more from a Boomi perspective, but thanks for clarifying, because this is a solution that encompasses all the other systems as well. So thanks for breaking it down in that way. Yeah, and do you have an estimate in terms of how long did you guys take to build this thing all up? Was it 2 weeks or?
Well, no, it was a week. It just said, you know, unless, I guess we had to include the requirements gathering, which was probably took as long as the implementation did. But the actual, now that we've got what we want to do written down, it was in under a week that we pulled this together.
Yep, great. So I think yeah, I think there are a couple of other questions for you, John. I'll let the other folks in the community ask those questions.
So there's one question from Steve Butler. How many golden records are in your MDH and how many staff and students?
Right, for this proof of concept to the executives at the university, we kept the number of records to under a couple hundred, mainly because we wanted to just prove what we could do. And that's why some of this took as long as it did, is we had to go find the correct sample set of, you know, which employee IDs can we pull in that show the broadest solution. We 29,000 records come back from Workday and 27,000 records coming out of Microsoft for this, that we then filtered down to the couple hundred that we want to use. But all told, we're talking in the end, we're probably going to be up around 40,000 records for just this solution. We've got 3 or 4 other projects just waiting in the wings for this to go, to take on all of our contact information for Salesforce.
So Steve, if you want to unmute, you can ask John any more questions if you like.
I've got heaps of questions, John. That all sounds very interesting. Put it in perspective, we are about to go live with a Workday installation. Well, we're in our go live week this week, and it's also the first time that we're actually using MDH. So we've got a fair bit of learning that's been happening over the last probably 12 months, 18 months now around that. But this is more outside of Boomi. How do you find Workday to work with as an application?
Oh. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have chuckled. Workday in particular was what caused us to become unenamored with Oracle Fusion middleware, because at the same time we were switching to Oracle, we implemented Workday. And that was in 2011. And Workday, if you've got a good studio group that can write custom reports and things for you, I find Workday is easy to use. If you're planning on doing direct API calls, it's doable, and we do it all the time, but there's a real steep learning curve learning the API set that Workday has. I mean, it's an extraordinarily comprehensive set, but it's really difficult to use. And I gotta be careful what I say. We were strictly a mainframe shop, and then 2 graduates from Cornell came in and said, we'll build you a building if you'll take PeopleSoft. You know, so that was the Duffield brothers, and we bought PeopleSoft, and then about 8-10 years later they came back and we'll buy you a quad if you'll take Workday, the same 2 Duffield brothers. And so we kind of got back into
That's called bribery, isn't it? That sort of bribery or blackmail, isn't that what they call that sort of practice?
I don't think blackmail and alumni donations, endowments can be used in the same sentence.
So we have a
Thanks,
question
John.
from Chris. Chris, can you unmute yourself? Should be able to, right?
Hi, John. It's very good to see you again. I would just have a question about how sophisticated you got with your match rules and whether or not you instead sort of have a universal ID, or so how did you identify the records to update for the golden record?
Our match rules were relatively unsophisticated for this. We have all kinds of designs for how they're going to get extended once we incorporate the entire university into this. But for this particular proof of concept, all we really needed was to verify that the employee IDs didn't step on each other, that, you know, you didn't have two employee IDs for the same person, or you know, two people for the same employee ID. And I forget, there was a second set of match rules that we implemented, and I don't even remember now what that one was. But we wanted to get this thing up and running in a hurry, so we didn't. Now, to be honest with you, we had a second proof of concept 3 weeks ago that got, or 4 weeks ago, that got halted because of the coronavirus and the university freezing all spending. That was a lot more complicated match rule set than what this particular thing does.
Yeah, we have, as Steve said, we're about to go live with Workday, but that's at this point in time, that's just staff. So again, our match rules are really, really simple, but the vision is we'll bring student in as well. And we have a high percentage of staff who are students and vice versa. So the matching is going to be much more interesting.
Yeah.
We've done it like we have because it effectively introduces MDH into our landscape, so we can get used to supporting it operationally without having to pay much attention initially to data stewardship and arguments over who owns what. We want to get the technology bedded in before we start dealing with some of the politics.
Yeah, I hear you. If it hadn't been for this email fiasco, the one group on campus with the biggest stick is our alumni affairs group, because they're the ones that bring all the endowment money in, and they had refused Master Data Hub for years, but they got really burned by this email thing, and now they've jumped in with both feet, so they're helping us with it. And I just remembered what the other match rule was. It was for email addresses that are invalid. And we had cleansing rules and we had match rules, because a solution that provides targets for emails isn't useful if the email address that we have is dumb. So.
Cool.
And Andrew knows how to get a hold of me, so anybody that wants to talk afterwards is welcome to reach out. So.
Yep, I was gonna say, John, I appreciate you know, taking a few extra moments there to take some questions. If there are any additional questions, please ask away. I mean, there'll be, again, opportunity to continue this conversation this afternoon. But if you don't have any questions right now and you want to reach out to John later, there is a higher ed user group on the community. So if you're not currently a member of that group, please join, and then just post your questions in there. I can mention John, and he'll be able to respond back to you. If it's something specific to a product, you want to mention that or post your question in one of the forums, you're welcome to do that as well. And you can just use the @mention feature to @mention John, and John will be hopefully kind enough to get back to you. once he gets get that alert. So great, awesome, cool, very good, John. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Again, thank you for being with us at such an odd hour. Hopefully, you'll be able to get back to sleep after the after the events and have a restful rest of your evening. But okay. So we have next Arun and Nadir. Do you guys want to kind of get into some more organic discussion with the group here?
Yeah, sure. So John spoke a little bit about creating a private item cloud and segregating their business units or their faculties in sub-accounts. So private outing cloud allows customers to have a parent account and then all these sub-accounts, and they've chosen to segregate, I assume, each faculty to do their own work. But Dominic, you have a different approach from NQUT. I think you're still exploring it at the moment. If you'd just like to just sort of talk a little bit about how you're distributing Boomi within the university, what are some of the challenges that you're facing and some of the things that you found out through that process? Sorry to put you on the spot there, Dominic.
No problems at all, Nadir. I can deal with an ask to answer. Yeah. We I think we set out during our Boomi implementation with a mindset around this idea of there are integration specialists, there are citizen integrators, and there are ad hoc integrators. And I think we had this belief at the beginning that it would all unfold into those sort of groups very quickly. And it became apparent fairly soon that we probably lacked the maturity in our own approach to integration governance to be able to engage with those sort of communities in a meaningful way. And we kind of pulled back a bit. And I have a memory from a conversation with one of the other Australian universities in one of these sort of local forums that they had a similar experience. So we've backed up a little bit, and we're now sort of starting to go out again to look towards, okay, how do we relinquish the central control of Boomi as an integration platform into these other areas of the university. The one thing we have done that, which I think we've found very useful, is from the beginning, we set up what we've called the Integration Competency Centre. I mean, some people might call it a Centre of Excellence. And that's a cross-functional group across a couple of different areas here, which focuses on, I won't say control, it's the wrong word, but it focuses on guidance and standards around our use of the Boomi platform. So we provide, oversight for people, and we, and help to guide people through their Boomi journey here. We're finding that's working really well for us. And to the point where I think we're going to run out of resources in the integration competencies, and we might have to expand our membership just to deal with the load. So in terms of how have we engaged with those different sorts of communities in the university, that's how we've gone about it. I think we're taking a more softly approach than we originally thought we would. So I don't know if that answers the original question.
It's similar. And look, the only reason I ask it because it's quite a common question. It's quite a common question through a lot of the university. I think if there's anybody from Macquarie Uni there, they've gone through a similar journey. Let me just see if I think Jerry's popped off. So Macquarie University went through a similar thing. So they have their original plan, and I think even Flinders in the early days were planning this as well. They were going to give each faculty owner or their IT departments access to Boomi. They would go and build their own Boomi integrations and be self-sufficient. But what they soon found out that there's standards weren't being followed, and each area had their own way of doing things. And so they built this Centre of Excellence, which basically meant that They would train each BU in the Boomi product. Once they were trained, then they would go off and each business unit would do whatever they needed to do. But before it went into production, it would go through a QA process. So it'd go back to the Centre of Excellence to review and validate. And yes, you followed all our standards. Okay, we'll put that on the migration path. So if there's any other university out there that's gone through that process, please speak up. I'm pretty sure, Dominic,
Yeah.
I don't know, are you going through that process now? Hey, Gerard, how are you?
Nadir, hey, how are you? Good, thanks.
Good.
I just want to relate what happened to us. So, yeah, as you said, we trained a lot of people at the start. Most of the technical people from development, because the original plan was to have a center of excellence, CCOE or CCOC, that involves different skill levels. So from the development team, the support team. So there was like a 3-day course that we did with maybe 30, 40 people. We involved some business people with the super users, because we thought that, oh, there's some low code that we can utilize. And then what happened is, because there was no dedicated team, right? It was all part-time. So the resourcing has become very hard. And then it evolved into us hiring even Boomi from your team, Boomi professionals. But at the same time, we build standards and guidance, best practices. So that somehow guides it. And everybody, the major guidance was to really group the integration by our business capability model. So our core group, student management, have its own folders, all these things. So that's still going on now. So that's what's good. What we did before. But of course, we had a lot of changes from the CIO, and some like the the current CIO now. We have new directors coming in this week, so I'm sure they will revisit again how we are organized in the integration team, because we have an architecture team. I think if you ask me, we should be collaborating. The architecture team should collaborate with the integration team, because we can develop the design, the integration design, and they will implement it. So that's where we're gearing to now. And the hope that there will be citizen developers didn't really materialize. Yeah. Maybe because our systems are so complicated that it takes time to develop the citizen developers. Yeah.
It's quite a common approach. So it's just good to see how that feedback is.
So Nadia, just to add to that, this is Wikiet from QUT as well. So I work together with Dominic. So I think what we've realized is what Gerard have said is correct. Center of Excellence, you kind of need full-time people to actually be fast enough to react to all the work requests when they discovered a new challenge using the platform. So how do we standardize quickly and propagate that message back out to all the working parties again? And then the other point I want to share is that after all, Boomi, right, it's a very flexible platform. It gives us a lot of flexibility. We don't need to code a lot, but that kind of hide away and give people the impression that programming knowledge is not required. So as I think a lot of us have discovered is even though citizen integrators, ad hoc integrators, that concept is good, we still need some form of developers experience. because there is still documents flowing around within the system, the Boomi system, and the document is not very visible. We have to know and imagine what those documents looks like at every point of the flow. And then on top of that, right, there is still logics like branching logic and things like that, which a programmer needs to know the basics. The programming 101 still needs to come into play. So that's what we kind of realized. And that's why we kind of realized that in order to be a Boomi, in order to be developing on our Boomi platform, you kind of need a few years of programming experience. So that might be a criteria that I can share with everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree with that sentiment to an extent, and I think I'd like to kind of hear some of Shane's perspective as well. Shane's from University of Melbourne, and the reason for that is, as you said, like it's a very easy to learn platform. So I'll quote what Tommy said. Unfortunately, he's not in the call, but he's a assistant manager for infrastructure and Boomi at University of Melbourne. So he said this to me once, that since it's a very easy to develop platform, if you make a mistake, you can get very far ahead, and then you make a lot of mistakes very early. So it goes both ways, like so you really have to make sure that you have some sort of a validation to what you're doing. So what University of Melbourne introduced was, they introduced code previews rather than code reviews. So doing some sort of a basic check, and I'll let Shane speak about that. Shane, if you can speak about some of your practices in terms of how you kind of what sort of your development practices are around QA, and making sure you have involvement from you have a lot of developers as well as business analysts in your university. So how do you kind of work together in that fashion? Would be keen to hear. Or did it just drop off?
You scared him into talking.
Ah, yeah. Okay, I think I saw him in the meeting earlier. But I think to sum it up, what University of Melbourne shared with me was they have a lot of practices where they do code previews rather than code reviews. It's just like going back to the basics in terms of doing stand-ups and asking people how they plan to implement a particular piece of work. And then they validate that, and then they vet, and then they start about going and doing development, because what they said is like developing on Boomi is easy. We just want to make sure it is done right. So coming to you, Steve, I know Steve and Chris, you also had a very similar charter to kind of establish a COI. I think Steve, you call it as a COI, right? So
what's its name this week? It's gone through a few different. Look, I think it sounds like a general problem. We've gone through the same thing where our structure here is. We've got streams, different streams within IDS, and each stream is responsible for its own integrations. So they develop their own things, whatever those things are. And yeah, it sounds like a bit of a common story that we've put a lot of people through training, but they are only part-time integrators. So they kind of know how to put shapes in and join them up and that, but they don't actually understand the integration concepts. We have a development environment in Atom that they can deploy, create packages and deploy into there. We won't allow them to go any further. We have a test environment, UAT, and a production. We don't let them deploy into those environments. We as in the integration team, we get our hands on it first and review it, make sure that it meets our standards, and the package they present to us, we get to deploy that into the other environments to get our confidence up, that by the time we get to production, we know, what to kind of expect. So it's an ongoing issue. The people that we get trained up in the streams that actually, there's a fair learning curve. As has already been mentioned, it's easy to build a process. It's not so easy to build a process that's efficient and done in such a way that can be reused and, sort of bring some of those benefits back to the integration community. So yeah, it's an ongoing thing. We're still trying to get out there and get in front of people and help them on their journey as much as we can.
Yep. So I'd be keen to Yeah, on the theme of reusability, I'd like to kind of start and ask like members of the community in terms of what they are doing. Is it more like a technical challenge on the platform? Because I know our platform is very robust in terms of creating reusable components. So I'd like to hear what others are doing around that, and to also understand. And I've been told a number of times that with universities, it's less of a technical challenge, more of an operational challenge because there's so many different groups and faculties and departments. So I'd like to understand what others are doing around the reusability aspects and how they're overcoming some of those challenges that are part of universities.
If I could offer what we're doing at Cornell, because of the private atom cloud and the distributed development, and I'm sure most of your universities are the same way, that every school has its native IT group that has some level of skill, and they want to take over development. We created a really robust service level expectations agreement, and the university doesn't like using standard terminology. It's really an SLA, but it goes through an entire checklist of what it takes to join the sub-account or get a sub-account, all the way from single sign-on requirements to design review requirements to administrative requirements, etc., and expectations for being a good citizen in the private atom cloud. And we spent months putting this SLE together, and we'd be happy to share it with anybody that's interested. Just reach out to me, or if you don't know how to get a hold of me, reach out to Andrew and he can put you in touch with me, and be happy to share what we've got.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. And I know a lot of people have started to kind of join the higher ed user group community in our Boomiverse, and I know you are very active there. So I think it's great to have those discussions in that forum, so that there is obviously a bit of a discussion aspect of it, and also an aspect where others can kind of also see what's happening in the conversations and the threads. So I know a lot of people are starting to join the community. So I'll encourage everyone to kind of pose his questions to John. John's very active in the community. He's actually asked a number of people in terms of what they're doing and how they can better collaborate. So would love to kind of see the collaboration there.
Yep, I would agree, Arun. Thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry, man. I stole your thunder in a way.
No, you
But
didn't. It's good. It's, hey, listen, if I get other people to spread
advocate.
the knowledge and advocate
Yeah.
for it, then I'm doing my job.
Yep, awesome.
Can I pick John's brain a little bit more, if that's okay? John, I don't know if, I think it's Cornell that actually teaches Boomi as part of the curriculum. If I got that correct, is that you guys do that inside Cornell?
Yeah, we incorporate Boomi into a master's level data warehousing and data modeling class, yes. So.
And have you been able to, see students become boomers and then hire them or use them to help you with your integrations, or is that kept totally separate?
Well, Andrew will love, I always got to make a plug for my kid, but my son was the guinea pig for this master's level course, and he ended up coming to work for us last summer as an intern, and he did the entire Boomi training through certification and developed a production level and deployed a production level product in one summer, but he was completely trained up and certified in 2 weeks. So yeah, we have had a lot of success with students, but these are kids that they've got just a ton of different stuff related to data modeling and data warehousing, and Boomi is a tool they hope to use to do that, not necessarily stay in Ithaca in one of the coldest places in the known universe. So.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. And my next question is if we get some interest down in ANZ for this type of information about what you guys are doing there, can we use you as a point of contact, mate?
Of course.
Thank you, sir.
You have to, Britt always yells at me for just volunteering to do this, but I love talking to people and I want to share. So yes, of course.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I just got a wider question. So how do guys monitor the Boomi environment from, from a performance perspective? I mean, we've got those Boomi dashboards, and I can't tell you how many times people say to me they're a bit light on. So I'm just keen to find out what some of the other universities have been using. Josh from CNET, I think you did something with Splunk. Do you want to just talk a little bit about what you did there and what value that brought to CNET?
Yeah, I can chat a little bit about our monitoring. So I'm Josh from Catholic Education Network. We, in one side of the monitoring, we use Grafana to collect all the Jmx logs from the Linux hosts. So we get all the information about, all the heap statuses, executions, how many executions per minute, and then we put all that kind of stuff on some nice Grafana dashboards for everyone to see, which is pretty cool. But we also ship off, as part of, I guess, we call them like, an integration pack or something, and we provide this to our members and in our central tenant. And it's a integration pack that allows them to ship logs off to our central log aggregation tool, which is, it's like Splunk, but it's actually an open source version of Splunk called Greylog. So yeah, we ship all of our logs for lots of our big, important integrations into a central SIEM tool, so then we can do more aggregation. And so there's a central point kind of to jump into Boomi, to jump into the SIEM tool to have a look at all the logs for the integrations and things. So that really helps us with troubleshooting integrations that run across, Boomi tenancies, whether some may run in our member tenants and then some integrations run in our tenants, and they work together. So if you're troubleshooting things across Boomi tenants, it makes it a lot easier.
Brilliant. Has anybody else come across anything similar? What are some of you guys doing in regards to Boomi monitoring?
And I was just going to say as well that the Jmx stuff, if you guys are considering doing the Jmx monitoring on the Java VM, it's definitely worthwhile. You get a lot more information out of Boomi than you can just by looking at the host and looking at the disk kind of thing. So we find
Josh,
that,
how do you so I know you said you kind of look at average transactions as well. So how do you get that thing from JMX? I know JMX can give you all those and are you using Grafana for all those network monitoring as well, like CPU stats?
So Grafana is just the I guess the front end where we kind of view it all, and to analytically kind of scroll through it, what's been happening. I guess we just use a simple what's called like a simple host management tool to do JMX queries, and then it stores it itself, and then we kind of hook that up to Grafana. And so with the how many executions that are happening with that tool, we, as one of the extra JMX queries, we grab how many well, not the API, like the JMX kind of based APIs. I think they're kind of API based, but anyway, query the JMX endpoint, and we can get how many executions are happening, and then we just kind of use the tool to do a bit of delta to say, well, how many is different this time, and then we store that delta as well as storing the total execution count as well. So then you can have a look at the delta, and then you could say, well, I want to look at what's been happening every 1 minute, or kind of just zoom out and have a look at that kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you can get pretty detailed information as well. Like you could collect logs on all the garbage collection and how often that's all happening and everything. So you can get really detailed if you're because our platform is a multi-tenant platform, so it has lots of API based and event based things, but it also has a lot of batch based things as well. So we have to kind of make it dual purpose, I guess. Yeah.
Do you find that running those monitoring stuff, do you get any performance degradation because of that?
Look, we have a pretty, we don't stress it too much by, we're only doing about a minute query intervals, not trying to get heaps granular with that CPU data or memory data. So I think we're querying on a minute interval. And then some of them, some of the non-important ones that we don't want, we decided not to collect with Jmx, and we just use like the normal monitoring on the host. And then some of the other ones as well that are less important, we increase, the queries. Increase the query time. Yeah.
Got it. And
but we haven't noticed any performance hit.
Yeah. In terms of analysis of what's going wrong, do you start at the top and scroll down to the bottom, as in you look at a CPU stat or a utilization stat and see that the utilization is actually peaking above a threshold, and then you drill down in terms of which API might be causing it or which process might probably be the cause of this, or you have an approach where you see some sort of error codes and then we work the way up through that?
Multitude of ways that we kind of attack it. Depends on how the error is presented, I guess. One common way we notice stuff that we probably wouldn't have seen is with the analytics. One of the things that we turned out we wanted to watch more often than not was actually the threads distributed across all the hosts, and how long it's taking each host to do an execution on the average time. So then you could see things like, oh, here's the 4 hosts in this cluster. Why is this one really slow, or why is this one got tons of threads, kind of thing, and you can kind of spot an issue that way. But then other issues, the log integration that we built that allows people to ship logs off to our integration, to that scene tool. That has a standard log level, so we can then have a look in that tool and say how many of these log levels have we seen. Oh, we've seen a ton of level 3 errors. They're errors that something's broken, so we need to have a look at those level 3 errors. But then all the other stuff in the log queues, potentially, level 2 and level 1 are just informational things coming from Boomi that someone sent there for an informational reason.
Awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, just to build on top of that, does everyone see benefit of actually seeing our dashboard? People want to see that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, show them, Jared.
I can't share.
Oh, I can. I think I can. I've got them open here.
Do you guys want me to say, who wants to share? I can give you access if you need to.
Myself or Josh, that'd be awesome.
Okay, give me 1 second.
No worries.
Hey, while they're figuring that out, are you doing anything with AWS, or is it all local resources?
Yeah, currently, CNET has a pretty big, and this is one of the reasons why we decided to go with Boomi, because you have the option of chucking things in the cloud or chucking things on premise. And with some of our data security, like restrictions and laws, we have to keep student data on premise. So a lot of these integrations run on premise, in some Atom clouds, and we've got some molecules as well. But we are looking, this year we're looking at doing a project where we're investigating, running, looking at containerizing it and shipping that into, a cloud service as well. Or having maybe some kind of hybrid approach,
Our private Atom cloud is all running in AWS now, so.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, I suppose one of our troubles is, especially with our user base, it's not just us as CNET. We have, a multi-tenant IaaS environment where a lot of different network rules and politics from each of our user bases, say that they don't want to have these services being connected from external cloud providers. So that's been another reason why we've had to keep our current deployment of Boomi on-prem. But it doesn't mean that we won't be looking to initially push, or putting a version of our Boomi deployment in the cloud that serves one purpose or one solution, like a microservice or something like that. But this is our Atom Cloud monitoring view. The main point, as Josh mentioned before, is the threads. We noticed that obviously we have 16 diocese, so we have 32 instances running on, I think it's four hosts, 4 physical hosts, that is, sorry. And we noticed that with the way that we were building our integrations to push changes from their system of record for identities up into our API, that, it was consuming a lot of threads. Our system delimit on the hosts themselves were erroring out because the Java threads were going up and above that. So this was one of the critical troubleshooting tools that we were able to say, oh, hey, we're executing this process at this time, and then the threads on each of the hosts are jumping up 500 more than we were expecting. And we go, okay, we need to increase our threads on the host itself, but also, well, hey, why is that process using so many threads itself and actually consuming all the physical resources on that host and leaving nothing for everyone else? Does anyone have any questions about that screen before I stop sharing?
Very neat.
Cool.
Thank you for sharing.
No worries.
That's great.
That was really, really, really great. And obviously, this is one of the questions that, often this and how do you do DevOps and CI/CD and all the things, these are the recurring themes around what other universities or other members of universities keep asking us about, if there are any resources. So thank you so much for sharing that, Jared and Josh. I'm pretty sure once it sinks in, you'd see a lot of requests coming in to share some of those things and in terms of how you're doing it, or any kind of things that you can share with the group once they have this question. So really great that you showed us a view of it.
Yeah, look, if anyone's wants a bit of detail about how we did that, we'd be happy to offer some advice. One thing is, if your monitoring tool is just a normal monitoring tool, it may not like lots of the Grafana queries, so you may have to store that data somewhere else to speed up the dashboards. But depending on how many people are viewing it, it's not too bad. So yeah.
Just to further that, if you don't have our contact details, reach out to Nadir, and use Nadir as the channel to reach out to us if you have some specific queries, and we can get back to you through that way.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Jared.
No worries.
Cool. Hey guys, so I'd love to let you all continue the conversation for the next couple of minutes. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna launch the closing poll in the meantime. It's been great conversation. It's been wonderful to get you guys all connecting and sharing, and for John to share his story, and Jared, sharing, just sharing your screen and kind of walking us through what you guys are doing, and how everything is being tracked on your side. So it's awesome. It's good stuff. And Nadir and Arun, thank you as always for bringing such great questions and amazing customers to the conversation here. So let me launch that poll, and you guys can keep on chatting. But yeah. So you guys should see that popped up on your screens. Tell you yes, no.
Yep.
Cool.
Can't contribute, but I can see it.
That's right. You can't contribute. Maybe if I change your status, you can contribute. Let's see here, and that way you can give yourself a 5-star.
Oh, thanks.
Try now. I don't know if that changed. I already launched it, so that may. Did it work?
Yes, it did.
Cool. Awesome. So while we're doing this, does anybody have any additional questions or feedback about the event, any live feedback about this experience. You know, I know it's not the same as being together in the same room, but we'll get there hopefully one day soon. But as far as a user group goes and connecting with peers, anybody have any comments or thoughts on how to make these better? Feedback's a gift.
Look, I'll throw in 2 cents worth. Thanks, Andrew. I'm really grateful for the opportunity just to hear other users in the higher education space in ANZ talking about their Boomi use. I think it's, you know, I think we're working in a similar problem space. So I think we have specific insights that are worth sharing. So very grateful to yourself and Boomi in general for setting up this this event, and look forward to some future ones. So yeah, thanks very much to everyone and to the presenters.
Yeah, thanks, Dominic. It's you guys are such an easy group, higher ed. Just we don't have to poke and prod. make our jobs
Andrew,
much easier.
Yeah, I think I'd like to only say one thing. The last part is like, you know, the first survey question that you had in terms of, is it the first user group for everyone?
Yep.
And I thought there was a lot of people who said, yeah, it is. I definitely want that to invert going forward.
Yeah.
We do plan to do a lot of these things. We've been doing it, and these user group, as you said, has been amazing because this group in particular is always like, you know, is always reciprocating, always attending, always sharing. So love that enthusiasm among us, and hopefully we get to a situation where we do this opening poll, and the result is 100%. That, you know, this is not the first time that everyone is attending this user group.
That's right. That's right. But it's been interesting though, like I said, that every event that we've had so far, it's been a dominant first timers, and I think it's because we're going into areas and territories that we can't have physical events because we may only have 1 or 2 customers in a city. So this gives them, it's been sort of a goal of mine to always provide an opportunity for everybody within the Boomiverse, an opportunity to connect with their peers and to connect with us, and not just at Boomi World or at one of the world tours, but throughout the year. And this provides that opportunity. It's funny, John, you remember our very first user group under my tenure back in 2018? That kind of kick-started the entire program. We had a higher ed user group. It was more of a WebEx style. It wasn't like this with Zoom where everybody can see each other and engage. But John was one of the presenters on that call. John, I don't know if I'm going back too far, if you remember that or not.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, we've been partnering for a long time now.
We have. We have, and you also came to a bunch of our New York. I think you never came to New York. You came to the Boston ones, but I remember a story about John. I'll give you an interesting fact about John. I don't think you sleep because you drove from Ithaca to Boston about 6 or 7 hours. Came in, did the presentation, turned around, and drove right back to Ithaca the same day. So that was so the interesting fact is I think that John's last name is Parker, and for those of you who are Spider-Man fans, I think that John is related to Peter Parker, and he may in fact be Spider-Man himself. He has superhuman characteristics.
Now I caught help from Jamie and Tremblay for that too, for not letting Boomi pay for a hotel for me. So,
well, we had you all set up in New York, but then New York got canceled because of the pandemic.
Yep.
Back in whenever that was, a few months ago, when we switched everything to virtual.
Well, the 18th is another Boston, New York meeting, right?
That's right, June 18th. And then we're going to do a North America higher ed, and depending on what happens with World Tour at the end of the year, we'll try to do some live events as well, and just get the higher ed folks together at some of the larger events. So great. Unless anybody has any additional questions or comments, really appreciate everyone's time here today. It was a great experience for us. Again, the higher ed folks are always the most fun because there's lots of sharing and connecting going on. And appreciate your feedback as well. We'll be sure to take this feedback into consideration as we improve all the events going forward. Join the community if you haven't already. I see a bunch of you have joined the higher ed group, so that's a great place to connect with your peers in there. So do that. I did provide the link in the chat, and we can send that link out afterwards as well to everybody who joined the call. So with that, everyone stay safe. Continue to work together, and we'll get beyond this, and then we'll be able to hopefully resume somewhat of a normal life in the not too distant future. So thank you everyone again. It's been wonderful, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again, John.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Get some rest, my friend.
Okay, you too.
I will, man. Cheers.
Bye.